Welcome back to stage 2 of the Mirage GT build video series. In this video, we're going to be installing the engine ancillaries and senders. This includes the installation of our alternator, water temperature sender, oil catch tank and sender, dipstick and speedo sender. As usual, a full list of the torque settings for this video can be found on our website using the link in the description below. With our fuel tank and system now installed on our chassis, we're now ready to fit our engine ancillaries and senders. We're going to start by installing our alternator. The alternator is secured to our engine using 2 long mounting bolts, like so. Once in place, we can now attach our alternator belt to the engine. We start by slipping the alternator belt over the crank pulley, then around the tensioner and water pump pulleys. We now need to apply tension to our tensioner pulley, which will allow the belt to reach the pulley on our alternator. Once our belt is in position, we can now release the tensioner pulley and our belt will self-tighten. It's important to check the clearance of the pulleys here and to make sure that the alternator belt is positioned evenly. Next up is the water temperature sender. The water temperature sender is fitted with a tapered thread, so you may experience an increase in tension while securing it further in place here. Once securely in place, we can now connect the corresponding section of our wiring loop, like so. Next up is our oil sender and catch tank. We start by removing the existing BMW oil pressure switch from our engine, which will not be required as part of our build. Next, we're going to attach the oil catch tank to its bracket, like so. With our bracket secure, we can now attach the oil catch tank to the engine. With the catch tank now in position, we can now connect up our hoses, starting with our larger crankcase breather hose. Before we connect up the crankcase breather hose to our catch tank, it's advisable to attach the catch tank end of our smaller vent hose first, like so. We can now connect up the catch tank end of our crankcase breather hose. Next, we're going to secure our smaller vent hose to the engine mount using a cable tie, like so. We're now ready to fit our oil pressure switch adapter and the oil pressure switch itself, which is also fitted with a tapered thread. Once securely in position, we can now connect the oil pressure switch to the corresponding section of our wiring loom. The two terminals of our oil pressure switch are marked G and SW. We're going to connect the green and brown end of our wiring loom to the terminal marked G, and the green and yellow end of our wiring loom to the terminal marked SW. With our oil pressure switch now in position and fully connected, we're going to move back to our alternator and connect the alternator to the starter motor using the alternator charge cable supply. We can now also connect up our alternator to the alternator switch of our wiring loom. It's advisable to secure this cable with an additional cable tie to avoid the cable receiving any unwanted vibration once the engine is in motion. Next up is the dipstick. We're going to start by removing the existing dipstick bracket and blocking the breather pipe, as these will not be required as part of our build. We're also going to straighten the dipstick tube, as indicated. The dipstick will be held in place using this P-clip and bracket, with the dipstick bracket being attached to our existing air conditioning unit bracket, like so. Our dipstick can now be moved into position and attached to its bracket using the P-clip provided. The final stage of installing our engine ancillaries is to fit our Speedo sender, which is fitted to the differential and drive shaft on the rear left hand side of our car. We're going to temporarily remove the top bolt here, and it's advisable to reapply some Loctite to this bolt, which we will reattach once we've installed the Speedo sensor bracket. With the bracket in place, we can now attach the Speedo sensor. We're going to fit the sensor with a 2 to 4 mm clearance from our drive shaft bolts. Once we've set the optimal level of clearance, we can now secure the Speedo sensor tightly in place. Once secure, we can now connect up the wiring loom connections for our Speedo sensor and secure them with optimal clearance using an additional cable tie. This concludes the installation of all engine ancillaries and sensors. We're now ready to move on to our next stage 2 video, where we'll be installing our inlet manifold.